The Nile flowed with a silent power under the moonlit sky, its surface painted with silver as if the gods themselves had brushed it with stardust. At the edge of the palace terrace, Cleopatra's seventh Philopator, Queen of Egypt, stood barefoot, her silk robe dancing in the breeze like the sails of the sacred barges that passed under the great bridges of Alexandria. Few knew the woman behind the crown. Fewer still dared to look into the eyes that held empires in their gaze. But Cleopatra, born not merely to rule, but to bend destiny to her will, carried a secret not found in any scroll or carved in any stone. She had once fallen in love, not the strategic alliance with Julius Caesar, nor the political passion with Mark Antony, whose names echoed through marble halls and across Roman corridors. No, this was a love hidden from history, a flame so sacred it had to remain buried beneath the sands of Egypt, lost in the silence of the heart. His name had never been spoken in the court, a man born of neither royalty nor command, a scholar from the desert fringes who spoke of stars and poems with the same reverence he had once shown to her fingertips. He had appeared in her life like a riddle carried by the wind. In the days when her throne was threatened, when Rome watched her every move and spies listened behind curtains of gold, he had seen her as no one ever had, not as a queen, but as a woman made of longing and storm. Cleopatra often returned to the terrace where they had first spoken, beneath the carved lion pillars, where the scent of lotus drifted in from the sacred gardens. That night, she watched the waters shimmer, not with the pride of a ruler, but the ache of memory. She remembered his voice, low, calm, layered with secrets, telling her stories of distant constellations, how each one held the soul of an ancient king or lost lover, scattered among the heavens by jealous gods. She had listened, spellbound, knowing even then that his presence in her life would leave scars the crown could never cover. He was gone now. The sands had swallowed his name, but not her heart. And as the breeze stirred the papyrus scrolls beside her, scrolls she could never bring herself to burn, Cleopatra knew that her greatest war had never been fought with Rome or rebellion, but with the silence left behind when love vanishes like mist beneath the Egyptian sun. She turned from the terrace, back into the shadows of the palace halls. Behind her, the Nile whispered like an old friend, but within her, something stirred, a decision, long buried, now rising like the tide. The queen had mourned long enough, and destiny was not yet finished with her. The inner sanctum of Cleopatra's palace was a realm untouched by foreign eyes, a space veiled in perfumes, draped in sapphire silk, and guarded by whispers. Beneath the marble floor, hidden from the gilded chambers and judgmental gaze of diplomats, lay a corridor that only one person besides her had ever walked. He had called it the Passage of Memory. Lit now by flickering oil lamps, the corridor was silent but not empty. The air was thick with the breath of the past. Every brick held echoes, his laughter, the rhythm of his voice as he translated ancient texts into poetry, and her soft replies, woven not with language, but longing. It was here, behind a hidden panel of lapis, that she kept his final gift. A single scroll, sealed in wax and marked not with a name, but with the symbol of the goddess Nephthys, protector of the dead and keeper of sacred memory. Cleopatra had never opened it. Not after the night he vanished without warning, not after the search parties returned empty-handed, not even after whispers claimed he had betrayed her to Rome. She had refused to believe it. Because when he had touched her, it had been with reverence, not deceit. When he had whispered her name, it had trembled with awe, not ambition. But now, as Egypt balanced on the edge of ruin, Rome demanding loyalty, rebellion swelling in the south, and trust becoming rarer than gold dust in the desert, Cleopatra reached for the scroll with trembling hands. The wax cracked under her ring, and the words, inked in a script only the two of them shared, unfolded like a spell. If you read this, it means I failed to protect what I loved most. They will tell you I betrayed you, but I chose to disappear to mislead them because they could never know what we were. My life will be taken to protect yours, but my soul, it will wait in the place we first touched the Nile together, where the reeds bend in the shape of a heart. There, if the stars align again, you will find the truth. And perhaps me. Cleopatra pressed the scroll to her lips, her breath uneven. He was not dead, or at least, he had not meant to vanish forever. She closed her eyes, heart pounding not with fear or grief, but with possibility. Outside, the night deepened, but within her, a fire rekindled itself, something ancient and untamed, something neither empire nor time could extinguish. She would go, not as the Queen of Egypt, not as the ruler of Alexandria, but as the woman who had loved and lost, and now chose to chase what history had buried. Before sunrise, Cleopatra slipped away from the palace. Her golden jewelry was replaced with simple linen, her royal scent of rose oil, traded for the earthiness of travel. She wore the garments of a merchant's widow, her figure cloaked in anonymity, her face lowered beneath a hood stitched with sand-worn threads. She left without a guard, without a servant, without a name. The journey to the place described in the scroll, the bend of the Nile where reeds curled like a heart, was not marked on any map, for it lived in memory, not geography. But she remembered it, vividly. It had been their sanctuary. They had stumbled upon it during a political voyage up the Nile, meant to strengthen trade ties with southern governors. But in that quiet curve of river, away from scrolls and scroll keepers, they had laid in the grass like children, their bare feet brushing the water, as if neither crown nor consequence existed. Now, years later, Cleopatra's heart guided her more than any compass. By nightfall, the reeds appeared on the horizon, swaying gently as if they had been waiting for her. The moon painted their tips in silver, and the wind carried the low hum of crickets and hidden frogs. Everything was exactly as it had been, except for the stillness. She stepped ashore, every breath catching between dread and hope. The sand was warm beneath her soles, the same grains they had once traced constellations into. Then she saw it. A single stone, smooth and half-buried, etched with a symbol. Not a name, not a message. A star. The same one he had always drawn for her, the one he claimed was not part of any known constellation, but belonged to her alone. Cleopatra knelt, her fingers brushing over the carved lines. And beneath it, just barely visible, was a second mark, the spiral of eternal return. It was a sign, a code. He had left it for her. Suddenly, a sound, a step. Not an animal, not the wind. She turned sharply, eyes narrowing into the shadows. For a breathless moment, the night said nothing. Then, a figure emerged from the reeds. Cloaked, silent. She rose to her feet, the rhythm of her heart louder than the Nile itself. He stepped forward, slowly, carefully, and in the moonlight she saw his face. Older, changed, but his eyes, those deep, endless eyes, were the same. He did not speak. He didn't need to, because some reunions were not made of words. They were made of survival, of sacrifice, of love that refused to die. Cleopatra took a single step forward. The stars shifted above them, and for the first time in years, her heart was not at war. They sat beneath the stars as they once had, surrounded by reeds and time itself. The night air was thick with secrets, the Nile flowing beside them like a quiet witness to the impossible. His name was never spoken. Cleopatra hadn't uttered it since the day he vanished, and now it trembled on the edge of her lips. But she didn't say it, not yet. Instead, she studied his face, tracing the lines that time had gifted him. He was alive. Not a ghost, not a dream conjured from grief, but a man of flesh and bone and memory. He had faked his death, not to escape her, but to protect her. After discovering a conspiracy inside her court, one tied to Rome, betrayal, and gold, he had chosen exile over exposure. For years, he had watched from the shadows, ensuring that the ones closest to her could not destroy her. "I couldn't be your weakness," he finally said, voice low like wind between temple pillars. "So I became your shadow." Cleopatra sat in stillness. Her life had been shaped by decisions, sharpened by diplomacy and bloodshed. She had outwitted emperors, charmed senators, and ruled a land that bled history. But in all her years, no strategy had ever prepared her for a love so selfless, it vanished so she could remain whole. She should have been angry, but there was no room for anger. Only awe, only ache. The moon arced higher, casting its light on the boat that would carry her back to Alexandria. She knew the city awaited her return, the council impatient, Rome more demanding than ever. Yet she hesitated. He saw it in her eyes. "You belong to history," he said gently, "to destiny." She looked at him, and in that glance made her choice. The next morning, Alexandria woke to news that would echo for centuries. Cleopatra's personal guard reported that the queen had disappeared from her chambers. Her throne sat empty. Her ceremonial jewelry was untouched. Only a single scroll rested on the silken bed, marked with a star and sealed with the spiral of eternal return. Some said she had been taken by foreign powers. Others whispered of divine ascension. But in truth, Cleopatra had chosen love. Not as a queen, not as a legend, but as a woman whose name would echo not just through marble halls, but in the hush of reeds and the ripple of a river where the stars once wrote her destiny. There she lived, hidden, free, whole. And the world, forever hungry for her story, never saw the final chapter. Because it was written in starlight, not stone,